As many of you may know, my favorite gaming franchise of all time is The Legend of Zelda. Between the 2D and the 3D adventures, these games have given us so many experiences that we will never forget. Sailing across a vast blue ocean, soaring through the bright cloudy sky, putting on masks to take the souls of dead people, and even getting sent to the Shadow Realm turned into a wolf and then teaming up with a tiny imp princess to defeat a magic ginger. This series can get fucking weird. The Legend of Zelda is one of the most expansive series out there, to the point where they had to make their own timeline to try to connect the games. Keyword try. These games range from simple 2D adventures on the classic Game Boy all the way to the grand Breath of the Wild and hopefully just as grand sequel that will eventually come out. Zelda games are constantly heavily requested by fans and highly anticipated, especially when a new console is released. Every major Nintendo home console has a Zelda game to call its own. The NES has the original, the Super Nintendo has A Link to the Past, the Wii has the best one, and the Wii U tries to claim Breath of the Wild, but we all know that's the Switch. But probably the most highly anticipated Zelda game was for the GameCube following the immense success of Ocarina of Time. We were shown a simple demo of Link and Ganondorf fighting at Space World 2000, and everyone couldn't wait to see what dark and intense Zelda experience we would get to experience on a brand new console. Then they slapped us in the face with Wind Waker, which is a phenomenal game, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't what anyone wanted at the time. Luckily, just a few years down the line, we got the game that we were all waiting for, coinciding with the release of the next Nintendo console. This game was sort of left in the shadows, no pun intended, after its release and didn't get much recognition until the HD remake on the Wii U. One of the two things the Wii U did right. But now we're going to check out and see why this game is such a cult classic to many fans. Today, we're taking a look at The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess was released on November 19, 2006 on the Wii, and was a very unusual case of a game being released on a newer console before the older one, as it wasn't released on the GameCube until about a month later on December 11th. The first information we received about this game was in 2003, when it was revealed that Nintendo was developing a new Zelda game after the Wind Waker. At the Game Developers Conference the following year, Aonuma accidentally revealed that the development name for the game was The Wind Waker 2 and supposedly was using the same graphical style as its predecessor, but because of the disappointing sales of Wind Waker, the team decided to have a more realistic approach to the graphics and try to appeal to the North American market. And in just 4 months, they created one of the most iconic game trailers with an even more iconic reaction at that year's E3. Just look at this man Miyamoto and try to tell me you just don't love him. The game was announced to no longer be a sequel to Wind Waker, as that was shifted over to the DS with Phantom Hourglass. This divided the development team and delayed the game. And so the Twilight Princess development team decided, why not delay the game even further? The game was transitioned to not only a GameCube release, but a Wii release as well. And just like any other game developed for the Wii, motion controls were injected directly into the game. The developers tried to do their best to keep the core gameplay the same while still changing simple mechanics such as swinging the sword and the bow. It luckily wasn't too difficult, but this port to the Wii made one major difference. Aonuma believed it felt weird to swing the sword with the Wii remote in his right hand, yet have Link use the sword in his left. And because most people are right-handed, they decided to mirror the entire game so Link could use the sword in his right hand. This is the most convoluted workaround for any little detail I have ever seen. Why not just mirror Link's model and animations? Would that have been more work than putting the game into a simple video editor and selecting flip? That's literally all they did here. Their reasoning is that they didn't have enough time to rework Link's model, but I call BS on that. You already delayed the game a year. What's another 3 months at most gonna hurt? Although to be fair, I have to admit I kind of like the change because it makes the two versions feel more different than just controls. Still doesn't mean the decision wasn't dumb as fuck though. The game opens up a bit differently from previous adventures. Link is a ranch worker in Ordon Village where he is the apprentice to a man named Russell, who asks him to make a delivery to the royal family in his place because plot. Link then teaches a group of kids how to use the sword and a slingshot before one of them chases a monkey into the forest. Reason number 212 not to have kids. After saving them from bokoblins, Link prepares to head out to Hyrule the next day, but first, let's herd some goats! I just love stupid side mini-games like this that have no effect on the overall game, even if the goat physics do make me want to rip my hair out. Link then tries to leave, but he's scolded by his childhood friend/girlfriend/girl who is a friend, Ilia, for injuring Epona while herding the goats. Epona is then healed in the spring, and Ilia tells Link not to worry about Epona and just make sure he gets home safe. Yeah, they're gonna fuck. God damn it! How many times are Zelda games gonna cock-block Link? Link chases after them towards a strange wall which he is sucked into by a giant hand before turning into a wolf. I need to know who came up with this idea because I can only imagine how this idea started. Thank you for coming to my pitch meeting, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about what Link should turn into for this new Zelda game. Has anyone got any ideas? What about a gorilla? No, that's too similar to a human. How about Epona? Who in their right mind would want to be a horse? Give me some good ideas. I'm so sorry, sir. I know I'm late. I had to take my dog to the vet. What'd I miss? Gentlemen, I've got it. Link gets taken captive at Hyrule Castle where he meets the greatest Zelda companion of all time, and I will not budge on this topic, Midna. Midna agrees to free him if they work together to escape. Climbing to the top of the tower, they meet a cloaked woman who tells them how Hyrule fell to Twilight. And I bet you could never guess who this woman is. It's Zelda? Who would have guessed? Link and Midna escape the castle and head back to Ordon Village, which has been infested with Bulbins, which has the villagers a little on edge anytime they see a monster. Link then needs to collect tears of light from these weird bugs to save the area from Twilight. Basically, just an early predecessor for the Silent Realm and Skyward Sword, but without making you shit your pants. Link is then turned back into a human with his classic green tunic because plot again, and the true adventure begins. After dumping the first few hours of the game on you, maybe we should touch on the actual gameplay. Just like any Zelda game, the main combat is performed with a sword, a shield, and an array of different items. These range from classic items like bombs, to ones we wish could come back like the claw shots, and to ones that you use for one dungeon and never again and will never return to a game because it's dumb with a Dominion Rod. They literally turned a song from the Wind Waker into an item but made it worse. Who thought this would be a good idea for the main item in the Temple of Time? Luckily, the majority of the items in this game are all pretty useful and are some of my favorite in the series. You can basically turn your bow into a sniper rifle, which makes no sense to me, but it's awesome, so I can't complain. Then there's this ball and chain, which seems just super impractical because of how big it is in comparison to Link. He must be buff as hell because that ball has gotta weigh a ton. Literally. Plus, you can turn into a Beyblade, which is used about 2 times during the game, but god damn are those 2 times fun. There's even multiple tunics, which can let you swim underwater, and one that makes you invincible as long as you have enough rupees, which is some complete overpowered bullshit. But hey, at least it's a realistic depiction of rich people wasting money while being protected from any consequences. But as great as all those items are, that's not what makes this game unique. Did you forget Link can turn into a goddamn wolf? Link pretty obviously controls vastly different as a wolf than he does as a human. Instead of a sword and other items, Link just jumps and bites and probably gives all of his enemies rabies. It feels so weird to fight exactly the same way with buttons or swinging the Wii Remote, just with biting instead of a sword, but it strangely works. Wolf Link also has an attack that creates an energy field on the ground, and any enemy that's inside it gets attacked in a combo. This is the only way to take out certain enemies like Dark Beasts who revive each other if not all taken out at the same time. Plus, his movement and non-combat abilities are just as, if not more useful than in battle. Wolf Link can move faster than regular Link, perform super jumps with the help of Midna, dig under walls and obstacles, follow scent trails, and see dead people. Bit of a dark turn, but that's fitting for such a dark game. The only downside I've ever seen with Wolf Link is that I have much more trouble dodging than as normal Link. It could just be because I suck at video games, but I refuse to believe that. Overall though, Wolf Link is miles better than playing as Human Link and is better than any transformations from Majora's Mask. You know I'm right. The wolf gameplay is what pretty much everyone points out as to why this game is so much different from the other Zelda games, but to me, one thing that really stands out are the dungeons. Dungeons are one of the biggest parts of any Zelda game. The puzzles, aesthetics, bosses, and just everything can make the entire game stand out. It's part of the reason why I love Skyward Sword so much and refuse to put Breath of the Wild above it for my favorite Zelda game. Skyward Sword has some of my favorite dungeons like the Ancient Cistern and the Sand Ship, while everything in Breath of the Wild is the fucking same. Twilight Princess though is luckily much closer to Skyward Sword in terms of dungeons in my opinion. These dungeons have some of my favorite puzzles in all of Zelda. I mean, the Goron Mines uses magnetic rocks to let you walk upside down in iron boots. How is that not amazing? I even like the water temple in this game, so that should tell you how good it really is. The only dungeon I'm not super in love with is the first dungeon, the forest temple. I don't know why, I just never enjoy it, and having to save all those monkeys just felt tedious. Also, the boss at the end, Diababa or however the hell you pronounce it, is just a budget ripoff Kale Deimos from Wind Waker. Luckily, the rest of the dungeons are all great, with some of my personal favorites of mine being the Temple of Time, Arbiter's Ground, and the City in the Sky. And of course, we can't forget about the random mansion that you reach by snowboarding down a mountain that's inhabited by a Yeti and his wife who turns evil, grows like 50 times her size, and is the boss of the dungeon with some of the best boss music I have ever heard. If you didn't think this game was weird before, oh, you just wait. The Palace of Twilight is so much different in appearance from all the other dungeons, and is both my favorite and least favorite part of any dungeon, with needing to carry these 2 orbs to the center while being chased by a floating hand. I love it because it's so suspenseful, but it also makes me want to nearly poop myself out of fear. Zant is waiting at the end of the palace, where you learn he was given his powers by a certain ginger we all know too well. None had been able to match his strength until Link, and now that Zant can't just overpower him, he goes batshit crazy and has one of the most ridiculously confusing yet perfect boss fight in all of Zelda. This dude has just lost his mind and takes the form of all the bosses you fought up until this point with some slight twist. And his fight with the Diababa form is still awful. Nothing can fix that. His final phase is a one-on-one fight against him where he just Beyblades himself towards you until he dies. Zant is the weirdest Zelda villain ever, but I gotta say, I love how quickly he changes from all-powerful to psycho-maniac when things don't go his way. Zant defeated tells them Ganondorf has been reborn, which is why Midna's curse wasn't lifted, because Zant used Ganondorf's power to curse her. So she does the most reasonable thing and puts on the Fuse Shadow to make Zant explode! Jesus Christ, I didn't think this game could get any darker! Link and Midna then return to Hyrule to destroy the seal on Hyrule Castle before entering to find Ganondorf. This smug-ass ginger slowly stands from his throne trying to look intimidating, but he really just looks like my grandpa trying to get up after eating a big Thanksgiving dinner. I usually stand on a high horse and say that Skyward Sword has the best everything in the Zelda series, but I can't deny that Twilight Princess's final boss might be better. This 4-phase war against the Demon King is one of the most intense and diverse final boss fights I've ever seen. It starts off dark as hell with him possessing Zelda's body, which would be a lot creepier if it wasn't just playing tennis. Although, I don't know how I'd feel about Link stabbing Zelda with his Master Sword. Don't take that out of context. Defeating him seemingly wins the battle, but of course it's not over, and Ganondorf turns into his Dark Beast Ganon form that you probably know from his final Smash and Smash Bros. Brawl. To me, this is the best part of the final boss just because it's so different. You need to face him head on and shoot him with an arrow when he charges towards you, until he learns the pattern, and you need to literally face him head on as Wolf Link and Midna. I just love the idea of Link and Ganondorf fighting as animals for how weird and out of place it feels in a Zelda game. Midna then takes on Ganondorf by herself as Link and Zelda escape before Ganondorf somehow is right behind them holding the Fuse Shadow. I get that they're trying to show how powerful he is, but you're trying to tell me he beat Midna, who literally exploded Zant, who was using Ganondorf's own power, and managed to follow Link and Zelda on horseback in a random field all within like 15-20 seconds. This is more unrealistic than a baby running a store in Castletown. I still don't know how to explain that one. The third phase has you chase Ganondorf on a horse with Zelda shooting light arrows at him while avoiding other enemies. And I know I said this final boss was amazing, but this is the jankiest and most annoying fight in the entire game. Ganondorf will just move in random directions and Epona just won't listen randomly, and Ganondorf's hitbox is the size of a tiny grain of sand. And nobody likes sand. It's coarse, it's rough, and it gets everywhere except where my sword is. After an eternity of chasing him, Link and Ganondorf get separated from Zelda and they finally have a good old sword fight. This is what everyone has been waiting for since that demo 6 years prior. I can't wait to see how intense this fight can really be. Ganondorf can lose to a fucking fishing rod? I take it back. This isn't just maybe better than Skyward Sword's final boss, it is better. I concede defeat. Link defeats Ganondorf by stabbing him directly through the chest as he screams in agony, just adding to the dark tones of this game. Then Ganondorf does the most badass ever thing by dying standing up so he literally never falls. I guess that's the end for him. Oh. Light starts to return to the world and the curse is lifted on Midna, turning her into her original form, a sexy dark princess. Just damn. Don't know how she's still alive, but I'll take it. Midna then returns to the Twilight Realm, destroying the mirror behind her so that the two worlds will never collide again. Although I'm sure if Nintendo wants to, they can find some BS reason for her to come back and I will not complain. Link returns to Ordon Village to finally reunite with his girl Ilia and they live happily ever after. Nope, Link just leaves without her. Why did you build up such a close relationship between them, but do nothing with it? They sort of did the same thing as Skyward Sword, with a childhood friend getting captured then Link saving her. But that ended with them clearly together. While in Twilight Princess, Link just leaves? I haven't been blue-balled this hard since college. Twilight Princess doesn't get the universal praise that games like Breath of the Wild or Ocarina of Time get, but it definitely deserves to be on that level. It improved on nearly everything from Ocarina of Time and tried new things that we haven't seen before nor since. But it did also give us Colin, so was it really that good? The incredible story, world design, and characters with a dark undertone is likely something we will never see again in a Zelda game. Just look at this cutscene and think if any other game in the series could do this. Maybe Majora's Mask, but besides that, none. The game brought so many new things to the table and deserves so much more recognition than it gets. I know I always talk about the love relationship in Skyward Sword between Link and Zelda and how it's done perfectly there, but what I actually love about Twilight Princess is that they didn't try to force Link and Zelda together and gave him a separate love interest with Ilia. It gets a little stale after a while with the same story of a hero saving a princess who falls in love with him, so this was a much needed variety. That's just what this game does. Add variety to a franchise that consistently has the same structure while still following that same structure to an extent. If we're looking for a black sheep for the 3D Zelda games, it's hands down Twilight Princess. Or I guess it would be Black Wolf. This is a top 3 Zelda game of all time, and I will not be accepting any arguments. It has something for everyone, including so many waifus for you to crush on. Especially... no, not her. Yeah.